the good news that we received from the Auditor General's Department. A report was presented to Parliament, a special report. And in that report, it was indicated that 67.32 million Ghana cedis has been recovered by the Auditor General from individuals and organizations through surcharges during the year 2018. The Auditor General has promised even more action in this direction. Martin Amidu, the person who holds the office of Special Prosecutor, has expressed an interest in dealing with corruption and fraud aspects of this process. And then, of course, IOCU has also expressed interest in the recovery of embezzled state funds. I don't know, when I hear expressed interest, it almost sounds like they are seeking permission, to join in this work. But Ace, a lot of this started with you. This is not a moment to be modest, I don't think. A lot of this started with you and Occupy Ghana. You raised important questions about the already existing laws, which ought to permit us to take more stringent action when people do the wrong thing with state funds. Now it's happened. It started to happen at least. Over 500 million Ghana cedis was identified to have been basically in the wrong place by the Auditor General. Out of that, 67 million of it now has come back. So it's possible.
It's possible. And the bigger figure is the 5.4 billion that was padded into the government's contract bill and submitted to government, that the government owed, let's say, 11 billion cedis to contractors. And the government submitted it to the Auditor General. He disallowed 5.4 billion of it. There are about 6 appeals against it, but that still won't affect the figure. I mean, the figure is still huge. It's still over 5.4 billion. And that is savings. And let's get this. Government officials told government, the new government, that you owe 11 billion. So pay. You owe these contractors 11 billion. The Auditor General did an audit and realized that over 5 billion had already been paid, yet the bills were resubmitted to government. And so government was going to pay twice. Into whose pockets? It's 5.4 billion. That's over $1 billion, if you want to think in dollars. And this was going to be paid to through accounts to people who had already been paid.
To put that in perspective, that's more than the IMF bailout.
Thank you. I mean, for me, look, it's not a moment of triumph. It's saying, wow, what if? Now, and it's Occupy Ghana. This is not ASAM Command. This is Occupy Ghana. Wow. But let me go back a little bit. It must have been 1993. The Constitution had just come into force. I was a young teacher, and I'll disclose this. I was a young, I hope, a teaching assistant at the University of Ghana. And one day, Professor Amar called me in and said that a gentleman wanted research on the economic aspects of the Constitution. That gentleman, I've been disclosed today, is Mr. Charles Mensah. He was then setting up the IEA. Oh. And so I was hired. I remember how much I was paid. I was just about to leave for school in the US, in Canada. I was paid $100 to do the research on the economic aspects of the new constitution that had just come into force. So it was an IEA thing, and it was Mr. Charles Mensah paying me that money. I don't know if Charles remembers this, but so I did what I found I thought I discovered was this rule of the Auditor General. Now it seems strange to me because it didn't seem to be an audit function, to be effectively disallowing and then surcharging. The normal audit we had read about in school, you just present your journalistic report and you qualify it if need be, but this seemed to go beyond normal auditing. So my young brain at the time was, wow, this is great. I probably didn't follow it again till events of 1st July 2014. A bunch of us got into the streets. After that, we formed Occupy Ghana. Occupy Ghana did not exist before then. It was formed after that. It was Occupy Flagstaff House. It was an event.
Yes.
Occupy Ghana was formed 2 or so months later. So having been formed, we were picking up issues to address. And so in one of my mad moments, I went to a meeting with the Constitution and said, guys, look at this portion of the Constitution. I think that we can make this Auditor General thing our flagship issue. I mean, I remember this distinct. I remember where I was sitting. There were gasps around the table. In fact, when I first said it, they said, oh, no, I'll buy you. How is this possible? So I read it. And there were gasps, whoa. So we first issued a press statement, which didn't get any traction, and so we had to escalate it. So on 12th November, we wrote to the Auditor General, 3 or 4 page letter, citing these things. And actually, I went and dug up my research at the time, So citing these things and demanding that he shows to us that he's been disallowing and surcharging. Else, we're going to take him to court within 30 days. Okay. Rapid fire response by the next day. There's a letter signed by the then acting Auditor General. So we received your letter. We think you need education on these matters. And 2, you can't tell us what to do. We are an independent entity. We are reminding you that we are independent under the Constitution. And 2, you need education on these matters. Now, I like fights. Occupy Ghana likes to fight.
Don't we just know it?
So we enjoyed that. And, I think it was deliberate. We waited for that letter to fester. And you should have seen the jubilation by the usual social media trolls. Look at them, they are too known. They have been put in their position. And much as the group was pushing to put out the results, I said, no, let's wait. So we waited for about a week and a half for the letter to fester. Then on 25th November, we fired one back. We said, look, yes, you are an independent organization, but the same constitution you are citing at us tells us that if we as Ghanaians are unhappy with what you're doing, we can take you to court. Yeah. Your independence stops at the edge of your office. Once Ghanaians are concerned that you are breaching the law, we can take you to court. 2, so we get, and the third thing we said, I forget what we said second, but then we ended by saying this, look, it's either you've done your work or you haven't done it. Prove to us that in every year that you have issued your audit report and sent it to Parliament, big fat book, where you name people. At the end of each naming, you say you recommend that better. Recommend. When you are supposed to enforce, you are making recommendations. If I remember, we call the recommendations important. That you are making important recommendations instead of taking the bull by the horns. Show us that you've done your work. To be honest, there was an immediate piping down from the Auditor General. We received another letter, this time raising questions and seeking to engage. Because one of the things we discovered in the course of this fight is that often officials fight you because they don't know it. They are not fighting you. I mean, they are a bit unsure about their position, because in our engagement with the audit service, and when they gave us, was it a 60-page tome of what they thought was disallowance and surcharge, and it wasn't it. They tried to say our management letters are disallowance and surcharge. We said, but that's not it. We issued one, it went to court. I said, but you didn't follow the procedure under your act for issuing the disallowance and surcharge. So it wasn't a proper surcharge under the law. That's why you lost in court. They could give us evidence of one, and they are lost in court. And you see, the thing about losing in court is that if you start a process and you lose the first one, you cannot lose you lose what I call the mojo. So, but we started engagement, and not to take credit, but we found out that they did not know. And so after the number of engagements, the audit service said, okay, let's do this. Let's form a joint working group. 2 people from Occupy Ghana, 2 people from the audit service, 2 people, 1 person from the Attorney General's department. Let's work on this. Now, in line with my normal 2 known, that took care of my Christmas. On Christmas Day, I was in the office. We started looking for disallowance and surcharge around the world. I'll tell you where we found one. In Uttar Pradesh, in India. So we paid to acquire the surcharge, the documents, and then we prepared what we call a working paper. That, look, we don't have to have too many meetings as a joint working group. Mr. Auditor General, Madam Attorney General, here's our working paper. This is how it is done in Uttar Pradesh. Let's just take it. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. I mean, it is there, let's just make the changes. And that was the wrong move. From the day they received the working paper, they didn't speak to us again.
How dare you solve the problem?
From the day they received the working paper, we kept asking, when is the joint working group going to meet for the first time? I said, okay, look, if it's Ace you don't like, because of, let's put nice people there. Case Rayford. Well, to the extent that Case Rayford can be nice, Sydney can be nice. So let's put accountants there. I won't step in. You do it. We didn't hear from them again. We were still reluctant. Then we also found out another portion of the law, which says that, the Constitution, which says this, that if the disallowance and surcharge happens, people are allowed to appeal against it. And the Rules of Court Committee is tasked specifically in Article 18710 of the Constitution to come up with rules of court so that it states what the procedure is for appealing against a disallowance and surcharge. So we wrote to the Rules of Court Committee, the Chief Justice, and said, can we see your rules? Because the Constitution has been in force since 7 January 1993. If you have passed these rules, can you show them to us? The reaction was different. They came back and said, no, we haven't. Help us. So once again, our mad legal team got to work. Went all literally on the internet, scouring for precedents all over the world. We prepared a draft. We sent it to the Rules of Court Committee. They worked on it, did changes, and passed it as CI 102. So you see the difference in the reaction. Rules of Court Committee says, look, help us. We don't know what this is. So we too, with our two known, we went and looked for it. And so CI 102, which introduced Order 54A of the rules, of the High Court Civil Procedure rules, regulating how you file appeals against the disallowance and surcharge, we actually did the preliminary work. Yes, they did some good changes to it, but we did the work. All right. So one day, I'm on a TV program, TV3, and there's an MP on it. And in between the times, he said to me, Ace, that's your thing. Nobody will do it. He said, the Constitution says may. Nobody will do it. He said to me, I don't think any Auditor General will do it. If you want this to be done, go to court. Get us a court order. Then we will do it. But if you're just waiting and writing letters and seeking to engage, you're wasting your time. That's the day we decided to go to court. And this was we went to court in 2016. Yeah. Now, so we've been engaging for a year and a half, writing papers that nobody was reading. So we decided to go to court. Now, when we filed the action, we got a full-fledged opposition from the government. The Attorney General just appear in court and say that, oh yeah, we will leave this matter in the hands of the court. No, they said we were wrong in our interpretation. There are about 5 separate defenses that the Attorney General raised against our action, urging the court to throw our action out, including the fact that we haven't invoked the jurisdiction of the court properly. They challenged the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court to hear the matter, that this was not a matter for the Supreme Court. Yeah, I see the surprise on your face. I can show you the submissions. And so at some point, the court stopped the substantive action and asked us to address the preliminary issues. They claimed that management letters were disallowance and surcharge. I said, no. So we went into it. We found CI 70, which is law effectively passed by the audit service itself, that provided for disallowance and surcharge, and even provided that people who take them off will be paid.
Please say that again.
That if you take the audit service off and they recover money, you can be given a confidential payment. Okay, nobody's going to give us any percentage of what they've recovered.
No, I'm not even talking about you. I'm talking about all the public and civil servants who are watching right now. This is the end of the announcement. Act accordingly.
So we went to court. Finally, in 2017, but in the midst of it, something happened. And in the midst of all of this, John Mahama appointed a new Auditor General in the midnight of his rule. Immediate reaction of everyone was, whoa, what's going on here? And we as Occupy Ghana were like, okay, let them bring somebody, bring it on. Yeah. You know, whoever it is, we are still in court. Yeah. And so Mr. General Domelovo got appointed. One of the first things he did was to reach out to us. So he called us to a meeting and said, I have seen your case. Why are we fighting? I agree with you. I want that power. It was a shocking meeting. We left there. Why? Is this a trick? And Daniel, it's true. After the first meeting, I wasn't sure what you were talking about. Like, what? The man agrees with us. We want to fight. He says, I agree. So we even explored settling the matter and withdrawing. We said, no. Let the Supreme Court pronounce on it. Because there was a risk we were wrong. And we wanted the Supreme Court to tell us that we were wrong, if we were. Then we started investigating this Mr. Domelovo man and found out that he's literally worshipped in Malawi as bringing auditing discipline as a World Bank official. We found out that he had gotten Zambia to pass our disallowance and surcharge law, and it was being deployed in that country. Can you believe that? What we had from 93, and incidentally, had been on in at least one other constitution, and we're not using, he had gotten another African country to pass it as their law, and it was being implemented. So we said, no, this is a good man. We went to court, and what was our main argument? It is true that under Article 187, the word is may. The Auditor General may, if he discovers in the course of his audit that expenditures have been spent illegally, monies have been spent illegally, that there's been a loss to the government or some monies have not been brought into account, he can disallow it and surcharge the people with it. Then we said the law says may, which means that it's, as they say, it is permissive and empowering. It is not mandatory or imperative, as the law says. So he's not compelled to do it. But wait a second. This constitution is a living document. If you are empowered to do a thing, that if you discover, let's rid it of all the fluff, stealing of government money, surcharge the people with it. And every year, you produce a report that shows that people have stolen the money, and you never surcharge them. Then your non-use of the power is an abuse of the power. So we went to court saying that the non-use of the power is an abuse. So the court should determine that in all those years, and we went back, got the Auditor General's report, and saw billions of cedis frittered away. And this is the worst part. You know, if somebody spends your money and you don't sue to recover for 6 years, you lose the money. So right now, this Auditor General, he can't go beyond 2012. Statute of limitations. We cannot raise that in the suit. We tried to get the Supreme Court to answer, but they ignored us on that. We wanted the Supreme Court to pronounce that we could go beyond 6 years. They just didn't mind us on that. They're silly boys. I'm not going to go there. But so, and the Supreme Court agreed with us. And the Supreme Court said, look, we are going to read this may as shall.
Wow. Has that ever?
Well, there's been instances. We managed to get a couple of English cases and one Ghanaian case that skirted the issue, where the permissive may was interpreted to mean a mandatory may. So the Supreme Court said it is may, but we hereby pronounce it mandatory. They say we order the Attorney General that whenever he comes across any of the three instances, expenditures not in accordance with law, accounts not brought, something not brought into account, and loss, he is required by force to issue a disallowance and surcharge. Strange. It means that if he fails to issue it, he's in contempt of the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is up there. They then ordered the Attorney General that when he has issued his disallowance and surcharge, you are bound by law to chase the money and do enforcement if the people don't pay. And prosecute. Okay, I think the Supreme Court will say something got quite excited. But, and prosecute. So that was the judgment received. Mr. Domedovo then went to town. With the Supreme Court judgment in his hands, he started this work and started issuing his first batch of disallowances and surcharges. And Ghana is a very interesting country because you issue a disallowance against Kojo, and then Nana comes to pay. But then people started showing up and people started paying. Others haven't paid yet, but he goes to NHIA and determines that, well, close to 400 million has been spent in breach of the law. He has surcharged all the people, mentioned their names, send them the surcharges. Huge companies in Ghana have been surcharged. Prominent political personalities have been surcharged in this. There's close to that, out of the $500 million that he surcharged in 2018, the subject of this report, 80% is NHIA. So he surcharged them as well. And so here we are, he's recovered 67 million. He has disallowed 5.4 billion, which have made 17 Ghanaians billionaires by now. And he has surcharged another 500 million cedis. And this process is going on. And so we do not take credit for it. This is Ghana's victory. Not a pesewa of that comes into the pockets of Occupy Ghana. We had to file the court papers. Our filings in court were over 300 pages. Right? And if you're going to the Supreme Court, 12 or 15 copies. So imagine the extent of it. We didn't pay full legal fees, but we had to, take off the legal fees or some legal fees as well. Not a dime of that is going to come into our pockets. But if we wake up every morning, and if all the audit service does is to recover 67 million cedis for Ghana and disallow 5.4 billion cedis, we are happy. If we fold up Occupy Ghana tomorrow, we'd have achieved our purposes. But we haven't finished. Mm-hmm. We have sounded a warning. Access declaration. We are coming there.
Oh dear. All right. Well, that was A. Sankuma attempting to blame Dr. Charles Mensah for everything that's happened.
Yes, and Professor Musoma.
Yes,
the two of them are to blame for this.
Yes, indeed. But look, I'm sure there are many Ghanaians who are thinking that history will most certainly recognize you and Occupy Ghana for your role in what we're seeing. It is historic. What a shame.
And to add, after this decision, African countries have started passing our law. Sierra Leone has followed Ghana. So Ghana is really the black star. Liberia.
But Ghana followed Zambia.
No, well, Ghana had the law and didn't use it, so Zambia started using it. Guess what? In the last month, South Africa, based on the decision of the Supreme Court and the existence of the law, South Africa has also passed, it has received presidential assent. Word on the ground is that actually the World Bank is asking all African countries to pass the same law. Because if what the audit service is achieving in Ghana goes around Africa, its implications would be massive. So the decision of our Supreme Court is now being read in several African countries. The law we have passed in our constitution that we ignored for years until some people had to go to court is being passed in a few African countries. And so the implications of this are much bigger than just sitting at an Occupy Ghana meeting and thinking, Charlie, let's cause some trouble. I think we've caused more trouble than we thought.
And them trouble, you know, the right kind of trouble. To think that our own government was fighting the implementation of this law.
Yes.
We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk a bit more about this. What's the next step? Yes, it's good to get your money back when it shouldn't have gone in the first place. But how about those individuals who were taking advantage of the absence of absence of enforcement to do this to you and I? We'll talk about it when we come back after these messages. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile, and we're talking about the Auditor General. He has retrieved 67 million Ghana cedis through surcharges after disallowing over 5 billion Ghana cedis earlier. Now, we're understanding what it means to us. We've heard the history of it from Ace, how it all came to be. Nana Utua-Champong is our other guest. And Nana, I'm curious about the... I wonder what the correct legal word is. Ace, you can educate me. Is it the probative value, or have I used the wrong term?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Of the Auditor General's report.
The evidential value.
The evidential value. That's where I'm trying to go with it. You know, it's a report that is done by an official, organ of government, the Auditor General. He goes into an organization, asks questions, puts together a report, gives the opportunity to those he has audited to respond to whatever anomalies he has found. Those people are given a time frame within which they will either respond to clarify, or respond and not clarify, or not respond. So by the time this report makes its way to Parliament, is it not of the same quality as evidence you are presenting in court? Why is it that after the Auditor General's report is dissected by the Public Accounts Committee, they even call some of the people named in it, they come and sit there, they question them, why did you do this? They say, to err is human. After all of that has happened, why do we then hear Iyoko saying, oh, now we will also come and investigate? Is there a need for further investigation? Is the Auditor General's report not evidence enough?
Well, to my legal layman's knowledge, I would say it is evidential enough, but the lawyers will argue. But before then, earlier, ACE tried to award the Man of the Year, or give the Man of the Year award to Dr. Addison for the bold decisions that he has taken at the Bank of Ghana to reform the banking sector from 2017 to date. Now, I think that should take second place to what ACE has been able to achieve from this Auditor General's report, because the sort of energy that he has put in. But all said and done and joking apart, I think they've really hit the nail on the head. Because if we go back to this same Auditor General's report, it took the person of an MP, i.e. Ken Japan, to bring up this Auditor General's report for this Wyoming case to come on, which meant that the evidence has always been there, but probably we've been treating it with, some jokes.
And that's the point. That was first detected by the Auditor General. So if that Auditor General had disallowed and surcharged that Wyoming matter, we won't be talking today.
Exactly.
Would have recovered that 51 million by today.
Yeah.
So I think it's a very, very good piece of work they have done. And I'm glad he said, even if Occupy Ghana were to fold up today, at least legacy, or they would have left a very good legacy. And
please don't.
No, I'm glad they've done that. But it's a lesson that all those in the public sector should now sit up. Every penny or every cedi that you spend is public money, and therefore it has to be accounted for. And with the promise from the Auditor General that we should expect more action and prosecution, it's also sounding a good signal of warning to all public office holders that you cannot play with the people's money. I think Occupy Ghana should be tapped on the shoulder for achieving what they have achieved, and we urge them to continue. But now they've put the ball in the Auditor General's court, and I hope his promise will also be kept to and go on. It's sad to note that NHIA is so much in the pickle with 80% of the findings, hitting them. I think being in a similar organization, HEFRA, which is also in the health service, I think we all have to sit up and make sure that the right things are done. And that's all I can add on.
Thank you. This question about the evidential value, Ace, I mean, I guess your take on it would be of interest to me.
An audit report properly done. Nana and others can come. The word audit comes from the word to hear, audio. And so you are required to hear all sides of the story before you arrive at your audit conclusions. If you haven't done that basic audit test, it won't stand the test of time. So they go in to do the audit, they ask for documents. If they don't get them, they will issue the management letters asking for responses before they do a final audit report. Sometimes they are unable to cross all their T's and dot all their I's, and those ones I think that the courts can set aside. But what the court does is that this is enforceable. The disallowance and charges certificate arising from, it doesn't even have to arise from the report. If in the course of the audit, they find out that there's been a breach of the law, which will lead to a disallowance and surcharge, they are entitled to do it. So if they issue the disallowance and surcharge, the law then gives you an option. Well, you pay within 60 days. Or no, you file an appeal within 14 days. So within 14 days, you're supposed to file your appeal to challenge it, because the law doesn't even give him the power to revoke his own disallowance and surcharge. It gives you the right of appeal. Because it's presumed that before he issues the disallowance and surcharge, they have the document supporting it, and you are unable to answer it. So if he issues it to you, if you challenge it, you go to the High Court in an appeal within 14 days, unless you apply to extend time. And in one of the cases that are pending, the court refused to extend time. They said the person had taken too much time. So if you don't keep your 14 days and you see the thing, and if you look, some of these surcharges were issued and the people haven't appealed, and the 14 days have passed. They would have to go and apply for extension of time and explain why they were served and refused to file the appeal. Or the court might say your appeal has lapsed. Pay the money. So yes.
Forgive me, because I am always conscious when I have people on the phone line. Mr. Joseph Winful is joining us. He's a senior partner of KPMG, retired senior partner of KPMG. He's a chairman of the Internal Audit Agency Board. He's a committee member of PIAC. So I think he's perfectly suited to join our little conversation. Mr. Winful, Happy New Year and good morning.
Oh, Oh, good morning and Happy New Year to you, your panel, and also your cherished listeners.
So I wonder if you will also be lining up to vote Mr. Domilovo for Man of the Year 2018.
Actually, I think I will be voting for the what do you call it, Ace and his group. Because
this is becoming a thing now.
They initiated the whole thing, you know, and I've been listening attentively to all the discussion, including the issue with our banks and so on. I also listened to, you know, Dr. He used to even work.
Yes, Dr. Sedo, Dan Sedo. Yeah.
Yes, and you know, he said he blames the accountants and so on. I think he is right. And if you read, you know, the background to this issue, you will realize that, you know, when Ace and his people even started fighting, they encountered difficulties from the Auditor General himself, the acting Auditor General previously. So you realize that our major problem that we have, you know, is the people that we have appointed, or the people who are at post, who are charged with the responsibility of ensuring that our resources are well spent and well applied. Domilovo says he's going to even do value for money audit and even engage engineers and so on when it comes to our road construction. I'm just looking forward to some of that. You see, when you are appointing people to certain positions, it's not only because they have a chain of degrees or because, you know, they've been there for some time. They need certain skills, and it includes confidence and the fear of not losing a job. During our PIAC meetings, sometimes we invite government officials who have come in and the rest of it. They will give glowing reports about our energy sector and what have you and what we should expect. It becomes too, you know, too great to be true. And during tea breaks, I engage these guys on the side and tell them this is off the record. You know, why do we have these issues and so on? And when they start telling you about the horror stories at our, you know, institutions, you know, you sit back perplexed, confused, and not know where to turn. Now, at the end of the day, when you ask them, but why do you sit on this? You say, boss, my children are still at school, you know, and the rest of it. Even at this internal audit agency, we are trying to restructure the place and so on and so forth. And then you hear comments from, you know, internal auditors on the field saying, you know, when I came up with this report, the chief executive called me and said I should change it. So why do you change it? He said, I'll be transferred if I don't. Or, you know, I'll be let go and the rest of it. So actually, I see the main issue as the staffing of some of these positions. Because they are so scared and afraid. I mean, I remember that a very senior relation in the public sector, when I was arguing about this, would just refer me to the fact that he said, from where you are sitting, you can afford to, you know, do that. So it makes me keep quiet and reflect on their positions and so on. Most of them are scared because they lose their jobs. They don't even have the confidence that they can easily get a more rewarding job as a result of their being that brave. They don't believe that. You know, they are comfortable with the job and the monthly pay coming in so that they will not want to rock the boat. But that is what is letting us down. I even believe that at the higher echelons, that is those surrounding the president and the leadership sometimes have their own personal interest, which is, which outweighs their responsibility to the nation. So I would want to focus on the actual staffing, those we've entrusted to do the job. Can they do it? What is holding them up? Is it our culture and the rest of it? ACES people, I go to church once a year, that is 31st. And when I'm at church, I realize that the pastors and the reverends will call people to the front pew to pray for them. And I'm surprised that they haven't called Ace and his people to pray for them to be more vigilant and to spend more of their energies and good health in pursuing this. Because rather, I see this as rather the work of God than anything else. We have misconstrued the essence of Christianity or religion and so on. We'll say, oh, it doesn't matter, God will provide. But He has given us the intelligence, the strength, and the goodwill to pursue what is good.
Indeed. Well, at the very least, they've kept them out of their prophecies, right?
So I would tell us maybe we should start examining the persons occupying some of these sensitive positions and maybe rise up and call for their removal or replacement. Because other than that, we might not achieve it. We have sufficient laws, we have sufficient rules, we have sufficient procedures. Regardless of all these, we are always in trouble. So yes, let me uphold our brave young men. I call them young men because I'm older than them.
There are some women in there as well.
And encourage them to do what they are doing and continue doing that. I know they are not, getting paid, by the people of Ghana, but just their words of encouragement or the people's appreciation is an indication that God will be blessing them.
Indeed.
So that is really my concern.
Thank you so much.
People that are supposed to be charged with doing this job, and if they were doing it, we wouldn't be, discussing this.
Mr. Joseph Wimfull, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for making the time to share your thoughts on these issues. Mr. Wimfull is a retired senior partner of KPMG. He's a chairman of the Internal Audit Agency Board. He's also a committee member of PIAC. Now, just before we wrap up, I've been asked to go through the list of the banks that have actually met the new minimum capital, either without a merger or by merging, or through the GAT or GATT initiative. So I'm going to go through that list very, very quickly. 16 of them met the minimum capital without a merger. They are Bank of Africa, who also happen to be our partners on Newsfile, Zenith Bank, Ecobank, GCB Bank, Stanbic Bank, Standard Chartered Bank, Barclays Bank, Access Bank, Consolidated Bank, Republic Bank, Fidelity Bank, UBA, Societe Generale, GT Bank, FBN Bank, Cal Bank, and, well, I've already mentioned Bank of Africa. Now, there are banks that merged. 3 of them were named. So the merger between First Atlantic Bank and Energy Bank. Then the merger between Omni Bank and Sahel Sahara. And then the one between First National Bank and GHL Bank. And then indigenous banks which benefited from the GAT initiative. There were 5 of them. ADB, NIB, Omnibank or BSIC following the merger, and then Universal Merchant Bank and Prudential Bank. And then Bank of Baroda voluntarily exited on account of their strategic direction. Right, well, this is where we want to wrap up, but very quickly I thought I'd steal a thought from perhaps the one from each of you in the last 1 minute we have about these prophecies that have generated so much conversation. Reverend Owusu Bempah, a man who is one of the favorite religious personalities of our president, it appears, has made these rather surprising.
I think it's a competition of prophecies. It's been going on for the past few years. We're getting into a new year.
But there's a suggestion of a legal,
the prophets they come up and they have like a league table of death. I don't know when we got so fascinated with such macabre, things. Well, look, I'm not sure, as people have said, that this is a threat of death. Yes, if you go to Section 75, it says if you put somebody, if you threaten a person with death with the intention of putting the fear of the person, you are guilty of the offense of threat, and it's a felony. It's not a cheap offense. But I think that before you define this as a threat, you should go to Section 17, which defines a threat in 5 key ways. The most possibly applicable one is a threat of criminal harm or force. Death is not a criminal harm unless it is manslaughter or murder. So if they are threatened a murder or manslaughter, then that could be the offense. Right. I don't think that is where it works. I don't think this seriously amounts to a threat. I think that these are things that sound in public order issues. The right, the freedom of worship and expression of our systems of worship, which might include prophecy, has limitations under the law. And I think that there probably is enough on causing fear and harm, probably with false news, or acts tending to breach the public peace. There's enough for the police to invite people like that for a conversation, at least for a conversation, to say, look, take it easy. The spirit of the prophet is subject to the prophet. Say, for microphone, because these people have families, they have relatives. You don't do that. There are ministerial ethics, that we ought to observe both. Right. So, but I don't think it's a crime of threat. It could sound in acts tending and causing fear and panic. But I think that there's enough ground for a conversation between the police leadership.
And I'll spare you the controversy because our time is actually up. We want to thank you both for making the time to join us. Asa Nkrumah is a private legal practitioner. Nana Otua Champong is a banking consultant. We heard earlier from Osei Jesse, who is the head of banking supervision at the Bank of Ghana. On the phone, we were joined by Dr. Dan Sedo, financial consultant, and Mr. Joseph Wimful, who is a retired partner at KPMG. We appreciate your time with us. My name is Kojo Yankson. Stay tuned to this station for The Duration.